think now it's working.
It certainly is, yeah, it certainly is.
How are you following that, Jameson?
It just shows at the top of the screen.
Oh.
For me. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Hey, Jen.
I never looked up there before.
It now says webinar is now streaming live on YouTube.
Okay, great. All right. So we're mostly here. I'll try and keep an eye on the participants, and we're on YouTube, so we're ready to. So we're rolling already, if the rolling is the right word. And so we start with Greg at 24.2, and De Testabatur.
De Testabatur vehementer of matrimonium, quod mihi per omnia probrosum esset atque onerosum. She vehemently detested this marriage because it would be disgraceful to me and also burdensome. Pretendebat infamiam me pariteret difficultates matrimonii, ad quas quidam vitandas nos exhortans apostolos hiet. She put forward my infamy and also the difficulties of marriage, to the avoidance of which the apostle exhorted us, saying, the apostle exhorting us said, Solitus es ab uxori, noli querere uxorem. Are you free of a wife? And don't seek a wife. Qui autem exceperis uxorem non peccasti, et si nupserit virgo non peccabit. However, if you accept a wife, you take a wife, you have not sinned. And if a virgin marries, she will not sin. Tribulationem tamen carnis habebunt uiusmodi. However, these sorts will have tribulations of the flesh. Ego autem parco vobis, etc. However, I spare you. Item vos autem volo autem vos sine solicitudine esse, etc. I want you to be without worries, without care.
Good. Everyone got the. Everyone got the tenses in Capris. If you have accepted a wife, you haven't sinned. And then I don't know if this is I guess this is totally okay, classical Latin, to use the future perfect if you will have.
Yeah.
I haven't actually looked it up. It's clearly it makes perfect sense.
It's a feature more vivid.
Yeah.
Okay.
See?
Where do we fall with the quad clause?
Needed you. What?
Where did we fall with the quad clause? Greg, you did it as a causal clause, but I sort of took it as a relative clause of characteristic. Am I sort of off base there?
Because of the subjunctive, you mean?
Yeah, no, like it could be either.
I think it could be either, right? It could be matrimony, which was the kind of thing that would be, no?
I think it's subjunctive in indirect speech. It's her reason, so it goes in the subjunctive. It's like a subjunctive of imputed reason or something like to that effect, but it's subjunctive because she's the one saying it. So he's not claiming as a fact that it would be bad for him. He's saying she said that it would be bad.
Right. Certainly, I took it as quad because.
Yeah.
And I thought it flowed very well when Greg translated it that way.
Yeah, it sort of worked better that way, actually.
Okay. Keep going, Greg.
Okay. Quod si nec apostoli concilium, nec sanctorum exhortationis de tanto matrimonii iugo susciperam, saltem inquit philosophos considerem, etque super hoc abeis vel Dei scripta sunt attenderem. But if I were not to accept either the counsel of the apostle or the exhortations of the holy ones about the matrimonial yoke. And you was translated sanctorum as fathers of the church. But if I were to accept neither the counsel of the apostle nor the exhortations of the holy ones about this matrimonial yoke, at least, she said, consult the philosophers and what is written about this by them or about them.
I should attenderem, I should pay attention. So she said consularem, I should consult, and she said I should pay attention to.
Yes.
Right. I'm just being more literal than you are, just because I don't know, because I figured Jen will do it if I don't do it, right? And also just notice the tanto. It's just because tantus is such a tricky little word. It's about such a yoke of matrimony. Not just a yoke, but like, right, such a big, right, thank you, Jen, right, such a big yoke, right? It's certainly easy to see why St. Paul has the reputation he now has, at least in some circles. He just does seem to have taken a lot of fun out of pretty much everything. But he had his little agenda. Keep going.
Quod plerumque etiam sancti ad increpitationem nostram diligenter faciam. Here's a quote again. I would say, because for the most part, the holy ones also made our rebuked us. Ad increpitationem diligenter faciam. It's getting to they more or less zealously condemned or rebuked.
Mm-hmm. Now there, I wonder if quod isn't that thing which, and it's the direct object of faciunt, right? Consult about this which was written. I should think about this which was written, which for the most part, even the saints in the indicative, right, are diligently doing to attack us, right? Ad increpitationem nostrum, right, as a criticism of us, right? That present is strange, isn't it?
Think about it like you're reading a text. You're reading the church fathers.
Right.
Well, look what Jerome's doing here. He's doing the same thing.
Right. Is there a word for that, or it's just what we like? Like Plato says that, the kind of literary present tense.
There's definitely a word for it somewhere.
I think you'd think there would be, but I don't know it.
I don't know a word for that, except that you talk about literature in the present tense.
Right. Fun.
Just to say a word in defense of St. Paul, because no one else has.
I know.
He was writing this at a time when a lot of people were influenced by, I guess, Gnosticism, and they thought that everything fleshly was evil, and that if you were to marry, you were sinning and doing wrong. And he was actually opening things up a little. People don't think of him as loosening up, but in this case, he was, as far as those people, saying, no, go ahead, you can get married if you want, it's not a sin.
I'm sure you're right. And it's so easy to pick on Paul. And of course, he wrote some of the most, it's ironic that here he's this, feminists all over the world hate him. And he wrote the most, the lines that are most often read at weddings and stuff, all of that faith, hope, and charity stuff, right? So he clearly had his moments. Let me just promote Paula. Sorry?
Yeah, I was just saying Paul's here.
Yeah. I don't know how the computer screen's going to, oh gosh, do you do this? Just immediately go from the 9 to the 10? Maybe I'm so old school, I'm still freaked out by that. Anyway, hi, Paula.
Hi.
Okay. All right. We're at 25.2. Thank you, Greg. 25.2, Victoria.
Okay. Quale illud est beati Hieronymi in primo contra Jovinianum, such is that, with I guess writing understood, such is that of Saint Jerome in the first instance, or in the first book against Jovinianum, whoever that is. Ubi scilicet commemorat Theophrastum intolerabilibus nuptiarum molestis assiduisque inquietudinibus ex magna parte diligenter expositis, uxorum sapienti non esse ducendam evidentissimis rationibus abstruse, abstruxisse. So, where, as is known, I guess, is Scilicet, where Theophrastus where he mentions Theophrastus, and then ablative absolute with exposites, setting forth most diligently for the most part the intolerable annoyances and the continual disquiets of marriages. He adds to those most clear, most evident arguments that a wife should not be taken by a wise man. Ubi et ipse illas exhortationis philosophicae rationes tali fini concludens, and where that man concluding the arguments of this philosophical exhortation in such a way, it says in such a way at the end, hoc inquit et huius mode Theophrastus disserens quem non suffundat Christianorum et cetera. Given that Theophrastus is saying this and things of this kind, whom of Christians could not blush, etc.
Good. One just comment about Scilicet, which is sort of impossible to translate and to get the flavor of. I always, in my own head and sometimes in public, just translate it forsooth, because nobody quite knows what that means. And Scilicet is really just, I can't describe it any other way. It's pay attention now, or to be sure, or in fact, and it's hard to know what the tone is, right? It can be sarcastic, it can be emphatic, right? Does anybody have anything better?
I mean, I think in this case it means namely, because he says, he's specifying which passage from the first book of Jerome against Jovinianus he means. So I think that's why it's a Scilicet here.
Right, that's good, right.
Namely where he mentions Theophrastus.
Where in fact, right, actually in fact might work as a universal and more normal phrase. In the middle, so you got that really complicated ablative absolute, but then in the middle, I would have said it meant that he argued that that a wise man shouldn't get married by means of evident, really clear arguments. That's an ablative of instrument. Do you agree, people?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, the whole thing is an indirect statement, right?
Yeah. No, well, Victoria got that. She got it's a complicated indirect statement too.
Yeah, it is. It's a tricky one.
Yeah. Any thoughts? we can all just pass over lightly for the entire evening his thoughts about marriage, right? Keep going, Victoria. 25.3.
Idem in eodem, Cicero inquit rogatus ab hirtio, ut post repudium Terentiae, sorora meos duceret, omnino facere supersedet. And that same person in this way, or in this wise, Cicero, he said, asked by Hirtius, after he had divorced Terentia, if he would take her sister to wife, if he would marry her sister.
I think it might be his sister, but I'm not sure.
Her sister? Oh.
You think it's Terentia's sister?
Or
Hirtius' sister? I should know this. I should have looked up.
It should be Hirtius' sister.
Yeah, I think Hirtius.
Right.
Hirtius' sister? Okay. Divorce Terentia, will you marry my sister instead? Okay. Anyway, he wholly abstained from doing that. He wholly rejected that idea. Omnino facere supersedet. Dicens non posse se et uxore et philosophiae opera pariter dare, saying that it is not possible for him to apply himself both to a wife and to philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Non et operam dare, sed adjunxit pariter, nolens quicquam agere quod studio equaritur philosophiae. He didn't just say, apply myself, but he added equally, not wishing to undertake agere quicquam, anything which would be equaled by his study of philosophy. Yeah, equaritur, I'm taking that passive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Quod equaritur.
Which would maybe be matched by the study of philosophy.
Okay.
Is that right? Is that it not wanting to do anything that would be matched by the study of philosophy? I think that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. I realized how pathetic my note is where I say, I don't know if these letters survive. I should have found that out. This is a knowable fact, and I assume it really does, that it's in the letters of Cicero. This may be the time to raise the question, there's the glib comment of just notice how incredibly learned she is, right? She's sitting there in the 12th century talking about Theophrastus, maybe in stories. I mean, that presumably there's what are they called? Doxographies, where people would just hand down stories of philosophers, right? So that may be how she knew the story about Theophrastus. But it really seems like she's been reading Cicero's letters, which can't be very common Middle Ages reading.
I think she's saying that, I think this is still her talking about Jerome. Jerome citing Cicero's.
Oh, right.
Because that's a idem in eodem.
So idem and eodem means in the same letter of Jovinianus.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The letters do not survive at this. They're not read at this point. Yeah, it's a 14th. Okay. I think it's a 14th century kind of rediscovery.
Yeah. Okay. Well, another thing I haven't done is hunt up the letter of Jerome, which I should have done. I'll get to it. I've been busy.
Just in case it wasn't clear, I wasn't entirely sure that it was, but I would take that comma out after Terentiae, because the ut is going with Duceret, and there's only I would either put in another comma after ut or take out the one after Terentiae so that it's clear that the ut goes with Duceret.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a strange thing. Alexander, the editor, kind of is pretty good with the punctuation elsewhere. It's a weird, unnecessary comma to throw in there.
I have a tendency to put in commas where I'm told I shouldn't. So that may be my comma. But thank you.
Mhm.
All right. This is fun. Mona, you ready? 26.1?
26.1. Okay. Ut autem hoc philosophici studii nunc omittam impedimentum, ipsum consule honeste conversationis statum. But in order that I may omit or pass over this impediment, this hindrance of the study of philosophy, consider honestly that status itself of this way of life, or that condition itself of this way of life. Quae inum conventio scholarium ad pedisequas, scriptorium ad conabula, librorum sive tabularum ad colos, stilorum sive calamorum ad fusos. For what juncture, what meeting is there of scholars in relation to waiting women? In other words, what do scholars have to do with waiting women? Of the scriptoria to cradles, of books or writing tablets to distaffs, of styluses or column of reed pens to spindles. Denique sacis philosophicis meditationibus intentus pueriles vagitus nutricum quae has mitigant nenias tumultuosum familiae tam in viris quam in feminis turbam sustenere poterit. Or I guess in there it's masculine, so it's really he's saying who, but it's really like maybe he's meaning which husband, which man. Finally, or then finally, intentus, on sacred or philosophical meditations, sacred or philosophical reflections, sustenere poterit, will be able to endure the childish wails, the nenius, the ditties of the wet nurses, which pacify them, the disquieting or tumultuous commotion, turbam, of the household, as much among the men as among the women.
It's a weird hierarchy of issues, isn't it? Like I would have put the problems of having babies in exactly the other order, right? There's a lot of toing and froing, I guess, right? The nurses are singing lullabies, which I guess could be annoying, but that's, I would have thought that was fairly nice. And then the babies are crying, which is the one that you would think would be most obvious. It's a kind of weird tricolon decrescendo, right? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, but you might have the babies closer to you than someone who had wet nurses would. I think the whole idea is that the wailing happens far away.
That's true. They could take the wet nurse could take the baby off when it cries, whereas we couldn't. And then you'd hear the damn wailing, the lullaby, which probably gets annoying.
The lullabies. There's more than one.
Nice lullabies, but I would have thought that sounded fairly nice. And then the toing and froing. I mean, I don't know. Sure. Anyway,
I did a little bit of research on this.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, but according to one of the sources I read, it was typical in cases like this where a child would be born out of wedlock for a midwife to be engaged, sworn to secrecy, deliver the child, and then take it somewhere to put it where it would be educated. The father would pay the expenses, but there would be no real contact or involvement, so that all of this perturbation would be eliminated. He'd still be supporting the child, but he wouldn't be interrupted in his philosophical meditations as he might be in marriage when he would be living with the family.
It was fairly common for, even after this period, but especially in this period, it's fairly common for higher status men to acknowledge children of lower status women. I mean, that's how William the Conqueror came to be king. His mother was certainly not noble born, and she wasn't married to his dad. But his father acknowledged him immediately as his heir, and since no heirs appeared, when his father died, he eventually became king, even though technically he was a bastard. And, you know, even a century or two later, that wouldn't have been able to happen, because the rules of customs, probably more than laws at this point in the Middle Ages, forbade it, made it untenable. But certainly there are cases in the 11th and 12th century of people inheriting, even women inheriting really large, I'm going Monty Python here, tracts of land. I'm thinking of Teresa of Portugal here, who eventually even attained to royalty, who were bastard born. It just wasn't as big a deal during this period in certain parts of Western Europe as it became, you know, by the 13th century or 14th century.
Yeah.
What is Abelard's and Heloise's relative social standing? He's a little bit lower class than she is, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. That's why they're freaking out over it. Not just because he's a clerk. My impression was always because it was because he was lower born than she was, that they got freaked out over it.
He doesn't say that, right? That's in the backstory. If it's
well, he wouldn't, would he?
He's her tutor,
right?
Which means he's automatically lower class than she is.
I guess so.
Yeah, a higher born man would not be tutoring a woman.
Oh, right.
Of the higher classes. It just wouldn't be happening. He is automatically lower born because he's her tutor.
So the whole power dynamic thing is different.
Yeah. As a man, he has more status, but in terms of family, she has more status. And so family is still a big deal in the 12th century, 11th century for women. They can drive more power. Sorry?
It's all her fault. She had the power.
Well, according to Abelard, yeah.
Rewrite the whole story. Never mind. Let's move on. I have nothing really to say about that. Keep going, Mona. You're doing great.
Okay. 26.2. Quae etiam in honestas illas parulorum sordes assiduas tolerari valebit. And here's another who, but it's like which wife maybe, or which woman will be able.
Actually, this new text, you all see that? It's backwards on my screen. This one actually has quis there, which makes better sense.
Yeah, this is the whole idea of the TMLT series is this is a single manuscript. Hasn't been properly thoroughly edited. The point is that it gives you kind of a messed up looking medieval text.
Oh yeah.
So there's issues throughout it in terms of orthography and stuff. So.
Okay. But I like quis better than quae.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going, Mona.
Okay, so which man or husband will be able to tolerate that incessant or persistent degrading filth of children.
Indeed.
Id inquies divites possunt, quorum palatia vel domus ample diversioria habent, quorum opulentia non sentit expensas, nec quotidianus solicitudinibus creatur. Id, or rather, that you will say, or rich people, you will say, are able to do that. The rich people whose wealth non-sentient doesn't feel expenditures, nor is, and I guess this was he, nor is he tormented with daily anxieties, meaning either the rich man or the rich person, I guess.
It could be. Could the subject of cruciatur be opulentia?
That's what I wondered. I have a question mark by it because I'm not sure. Or is it, whose wealth doesn't feel right expenditures, and this wealth is not tormented with daily anxieties. It just seemed weird though that your wealth would have anxieties, but maybe
but it's weird that it doesn't. I mean, wealth has also sent it, right? So you've already personified it.
Right, that's true.
But it does make perfect sense saying the rich man is not tortured by daily troubles. That makes so much sense. I'm not sure that there's whether there's a clear answer to whether cruciatur subject is opulentia or dives.
It's got to be opulentia, no?
You think?
Well, it's all inside the quorum clause.
Well, unless it's outside the quorum. I mean, there's nothing to stop it, the quorum clause ending and just saying.
Whose wealth doesn't sense or feel expenses.
Right.
Nor whose what is not tormented by daily cares. Nor probably
Well, just do neither nor, and it sounds better.
I agree. I like it better inside the clause that it's whose wealth doesn't feel and isn't tortured. We all agree.
That sounds okay.
Good. You left out. Did you leave out the other thing about rich people? This is so New York, right? Whose palaces and homes have and whose palaces.
Sorry, did I read that?
And big old homes have all of those rooms, right?
Okay, right. Whose palaces or homes have like ample or amply like many floors, have floors.
Right.
Floors.
Right. I guess amply is the adverb. Amply.
Right. Have amply or abundantly.
Plenty of rooms.
Where it goes with domus.
I was all caught up in the dirty
plural.
I thought it was nominative plural with domus.
So did I at first, but I do think it makes sense. Don't you think it makes sense as an adverb? Whose palaces and homes have plenty of rooms?
Yeah, I like that translation better.
Jen doesn't.
Not sure you can you do that? I
don't know. Can you do that?
Whose palaces or houses have floors in abundance?
Have ample habet? Have I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't know. It sounds that adverb.
Well, we just say in English, we just say in abundance as opposed to abundantly.
Right.
I mean, certainly I took it as just modifying domus, whose palaces or big homes have, and then we just understand plenty of rooms. They just have rooms, right? I mean, of course, even the little homes have rooms. But it does mean sort of like places to be apart, right? They have man caves and
women caves too.
Baby caves.
Baby caves.
We're nurseries, right? They can just have them up in the attic. All right.
Actually, medieval people did not have a lot of privacy.
Right.
Unless they were, using a hermetical or monastic life, they did not have a lot of privacy at all. I mean, kings and queens slept in the bed, and their servants would sleep on like mats around the bed in the same bed.
Yeah, but probably they could get rid of the babies.
Yeah, get rid of the babies.
I mean, it's fine having servants, right? It's the babies that are annoying.
Well, yes, I mean they had nursemaids out with the babies in another room, but medieval people had very little privacy, and people would basically live in a one-room shack.
Right.
So they didn't have rooms.
Even castles, there's not a lot of privacy, right?
So, right.
No, not really. Yeah.
There was places in the houses for the animals to like live close to the people.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily, if you were a farmer, if you're poor, you could easily be living in the same room with a cow, chickens, and all sorts of creatures.
Yeah. I guess that kept them warm. I guess that provided, heat. I mean, warmth.
Mm-hmm. You could keep an eye on them. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
All right, keep going, Mona. I think we figured it out.
So, sed non est in quam haec conditio philosophorum, quae divitium, nec qui opibus student, vel secularibus implicantur curis divinis, seo philosophicis vocabant officiis. But this condition or status of philosophers, I say, is not that of the wealthy, that condition of the wealthy. And they who strive after wealth or are entangled or wrapped up in worldly affairs will not have time, macabant, for divine concerns or philosophical obligations.
Mm-hmm. Is everyone? Do I know what that means? This is not so. The philosophers and rich people don't have the same condition. I get that.
Yeah.
Nor those who are interested in wealth or are in. How does the secularis go with the curis divinis?
Doesn't.
It doesn't, right? So should I have punctuated that differently? Nor those who are student who implicantur opibus. Those who are interested in wealth or are implicated in secular things, they will not have the time for divine concerns or philosophical duties
or obligations. Yeah.
Right. So we need some kind of comma after implicantur. Anyway, but that's how it goes. Everyone's okay with that?
That makes sense.
I moved the commas around on this too. I would have put one after curis. I was thinking that it was opibus student, vel secularibus implicantur curis, and divinis seo philosophicis vocabant officiis, so that the divine and philosophical officiis go together, and then the curis goes with secularibus.
That is what Andre's version has, I'm afraid.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
It makes a word picture if you do that.
Oh yeah?
Just, the secularibus curis with implicantur in the middle.
Yeah.
They get wound up in the secular cares.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And who doesn't like word pictures?
Well, we know you do.
Every time I point one out to my students, they're like, not another word.
I bet they just roll their eyes. I would totally.
They do.
I find it so annoying. Anyway, that's great. All right, thank you, Mona. Bob, 26.3.
Unde et insignes olem philosophorum mundum maxime contemnentes nectam reliquentes saeculum confugientes, omnes sibi voluptates interfixerunt, ut in unius philosophiae requiescerent complexibus. Whence also, in former times, distinguished philosophers, most greatly scorning the world, and not so much leaving worldliness behind as fleeing it, forbade themselves all desires in order to take refuge in the arms of solitary philosophy. Quorum unus et Maximus Seneca Lucilium instruens ait, non cum vocare veris philosophundum est. Of which the single greatest, Seneca, instructing Lucilius, says, philosophy must not be studied when you are at leisure. Omnia negligendos sunt, ut hic assideamus, quid nullum tempus satis magnum est. All must be disregarded, so that we pay attention to this, for which no time is sufficient. Non multum refert, utrum omittas philosophiam and intermittas. It does not much matter whether you omit philosophy or cut it short. Non enim ubi interrupta est manet, for when it is interrupted, it does not remain. Res extendum est occupationibus, nec explicandae sunt, sed submovendi. Activities must be opposed. They must not be adjusted, but they must be cleared away.
Good.
It's really good.
Yeah. Lots of practice with gerundives. I was wondering on line 2, Unius Philosophiae, so they could rest in the arms of philosophy. Can that mean philosophy alone?
Oh,
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Do you think, can that do that in classical Latin?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I mean, it makes sense, I think, to me. Good.
Yeah, it's unius, meaning the same thing as solius would.
Okay, great. All right, any thoughts? Any comments?
Bob, I thought that was really nicely read. I could hear the quantities. That was lovely.
Very intense sentiment.
Right. And we like quantities even more than word pictures.
Yes.
I mean, I'm with you on quantities, right? All right, Paula, you have a really nasty one, 27.1.
Deep water. All right. Do you guys hear me? I saw you just unmuted me.
Yeah, I just unmuted you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Quod nunc igitur apud nos amore Dei sustinent, because now therefore among those of us who sustain in the love of God, okay, you're silent. I'm trying to figure out, I mean, sustinent goes with qui is next, right?
Yeah, so you need to kind of like say they and get the subject in English.
What do you mean, Jen? Can you?
Like the they who, like you need the they in English. And we don't know who they is yet.
Okay, because is it they among us who were sustained in the love of God?
But it's active, so the object is quad.
Who sustain themselves in the love of God.
It's like that which they who blah 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 sustain, put up with, withstand among us for the love of God.
Right.
Sorry, I'm not understanding how apud nos fits in with that.
Those among us?
In our time, maybe?
In our time, yeah.
Those who.
In our time, well, yeah, that's possible, yeah.
I think maybe we should just throw sustain out and have it be sort of maintain or continue. They continue this idea in our time.
Apud.
Right. Which now, therefore, at our time, with the love of God, they sustain, but we still don't have a subject.
Yeah.
It turns out to be those who are truly called monks.
Yes. Qui vera monarchi dicuntur. Yeah. Those who are truly called monks. Hoc desiderio philosophiae. In this longing for philosophy. Okay. Qui nobiles in gentibus extiterunt philosophi. Who are noble ones in their race become philosophers.
Right, who have become
philosophers, yeah.
Have become philosophers.
Right.
Who noble in their races have become philosophers. So the basic point is that these monks, well, wait a minute.
I still think sustinent means put up with, but
endure.
So which these people who are monks endure among us in the love of God?
Those who are called philosophers did from the Desiderio Philosophiae.
Yeah.
Right.
He's basically equating philosophers with monks.
Yes.
Yes.
And doing it in the most roundabout way he possibly can.
Right, and so the apud nos contrasts with nobiles in gentibus. So like among us Christian people, the people who live in this way are monks, but among the non-Christians, the pagans, they were philosophers.
Okay. So is it true my note, I've gone out of my way to say that it's a short O in hoc. So it's hoc is parallel to quad.
Yes.
So what these monks have done, this same thing, the philosophers, well, you want a verb like they did, but you've got in the desire for this thing, the philosophers existed among the Gentiles.
Well, you use sustinent again.
Yeah, but I thought that was a little odd because isn't the sustinent, which is an ellipsis, in the past tense? Or is it present also?
No.
Yeah, I agree with Bob. I think it does have to be some past tense. Yeah.
Right. But you can do that. I guess you can do that. You can supply a past tense of the verb where you need it. But it is, right.
Where does the qui come in there? The quod qui.
Which qui? The first
what?
One.
There. Those who. Okay. Yeah.
So there are those who are called monks, and there are those who exist as philosophers, as noble philosophers among the Gentiles, right? The pagans, right? And and so yes, if we supply another sustinent or a sustinuerunt or sustinebant, right? What they were putting up in the old days. So what the monks nowadays are putting up with, the philosophers among the pagans in the old days used to put up with. But that is a big supplying thing that you have. I mean, you do a big ellipsis of just like the verb in a different tense, as Bob says.
Yeah.
Okay, I told you it was hard.
Taking a lot of faith in there. Okay, in omni namque populo, indeed, among all the people.
Remember that nam means for, right? In other words, it's not just indeed, which is vague. Nam means that this sentence is now gonna explain the preceding sentence.
Okay.
Right, somehow or other. And I think that's important. So in every.
He's giving an example.
Sorry?
He's giving an example.
I think he's giving a general explanation. But yes, it's an example.
Yeah, okay.
If you want a single translation of namque that usually works, for you see is usually will work there.
All right, I like that.
As opposed to just nam is for. Right. So if you want one that's different for namque, for you see, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tam gentili silicet quam Judaico sive Christiano. It is so known among the Gentiles that you are Christian. Aliqui semper extiterunt fide sea morum honest. Is it honest? No, honestate ceteris preeminentes. Sorry, I gotta find it. Some often become through honest faith or of custom prominent among others.
Can we back this down? For in every population, every people, both Gentile, to be sure, or what do we do, Skilliket? In fact, right? Both Gentile, in fact, or Jen, what was yours?
I would say actually, namely here. Again,
namely,
he's saying what he meant.
Namely, the Gentile people, and then you have a bifurcated, both Gentile and then either Jewish or Christian. So you've ultimately got three different kinds of people in this. Yeah. So in every kind of people, namely Gentile on the one hand, or Jewish or Christian. And
He's
then
probably referring to Muslims here.
I would have thought he was referring to pagans.
I seriously doubt there are any practicing pagans left in 12th century.
No, but he's comparing the practice of classical philosophers to the practice of people that are in his world, which are Jews or Christians.
Yeah, it's iffy if Abelard was aware that Muslims were not pagans.
Yeah, but he was talking about philosophers from...
Talking about classical...
Yeah, well, he would have been aware of Muslims, but most Northern Europeans at this time would have been under the impression that Muslims were idol worshippers.
Okay.
Here in Spain, it would be different.
I don't think he's talking about them, though. I think he's talking... I mean, he's been talking about classic... First of all, it's not he, it's she, right? She's talking about how the ancient Greek philosophers and the ancient philosophers said you have to concentrate on philosophy, so this marriage thing is like to be avoided, right? And then the same thing is true, and that's what we just had in the first sentence that was so hard, right? You've got the monks nowadays and the noble philosophers among the Gentiles, i.e. the pagans in the pagan world. And so we've got that now too. So in every people, both pagan now and Jewish and Christian. So you have a nice word picture there with the chiastic structure, right? And now you're on to the main sentence. Some people always have existed being outstanding in faith or the honesty of their customs, of their morals,
Eric.
Overshadowing others, right? They're what's the word? Standing out in relation to others, prominentes cateris. So you've always got in both pagan society and in Jewish and Christian society, there's always particularly special people, morally speaking. And the point about that is, if you continue, right? Segregantes say a populo, segregating themselves from the people with some
continents or abstinence?
Some singularity of either consonant or absence. More word picture, more chiastic structure. Right? Aliqua singularitate continentiae vel abstinentiae. So you've always had these specially moral people who live differently from everybody else. You've got your Christian monks, obviously, and you've got your pagan philosophers who live specially, and we're about to find out about the Jews.
Okay.
Right? Because that's the one that he hasn't really talked about yet. So now he has to explain that part.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you have an even nastier sentence still.
Okay. Apud Judeos quidem antiquitas Nazariae. There were among the Jews, in fact, long ago, the Jews of Nazareth, long ago.
No, there were
long ago Nazareth. What?
Nothing to do with Nazareth. These are Nazarenes, right? Who are a particular Old Testament ascetic sect.
Yeah, I know who the Nazarenes were.
Okay. So among the Jews, indeed, in the Old Days, were the Nazarenes, who consecrabant se Domino.
Consecrated themselves to the Lord following the law.
Exactly. Good. And then there were also in the olden days among the Jews.
Okay.
There were the.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Sive filii prophetarum Helia vel licei sectatores. Or now I'm not sure if is it followers of the sons of the prophets?
I think there were the sons of the prophets who were the followers of Elijah and Elisha.
Okay, so the close, yeah, we're probably of Elijah and Elisha, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sons of the prophets. So they're not sons of the prophets Elijah or Elisha, but sons of the followers of the prophets?
I think sons of the prophets is just in a kind of apposition to sectatores.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, that's what I thought in the first place. Sectatores, followers, quos beato et attestante Hieronimo, who, as attested by the blessed Jerome, monachos legimus in veteri testamento. We appoint as monks in the Old Testament. Or we call monks.
Legimus, I think, is just we read. We read in the Old Testament whom we read about in the Old Testament as monks.
Okay.
Lego could mean select, but I think it's much more, especially with in Veteri Testamento, it's surely we're reading about them in the Old Testament. And I guess we would want to say as monks, right? But Heloise just said, whom as monks we read about.
But, I thought of the read, but in the Old Testament, they're actually not identified as monks.
No, I think that's right.
And I was thinking of it more along the lines of that we identify them as monks.
Well, I think it's
like proto monks.
It's
Jewish
monks has identified them as monks.
Their manner of living is monastic.
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, it's more eremitical than monastic, really.
I'm just reading my own note, which I stole from somebody else, which is that Jerome says that the sons of the prophets of the Old Testament were monks.
Yeah, so he's identifying them as monks.
Right, and that's the point. In other words, there were in the olden days, in the Old Testament, there were these sons of the prophet who were the followers of Elijah and Elisha. And according to Jerome, they were like monks.
Yeah, but I mean, wasn't Samson a Nazarene? And he certainly wasn't a monk. He wasn't monastic at all. I mean, he went out and
Samson was just, if Samson was a Nazarene, that just meant that he was from, well, what is a Nazarene? I don't think Samson.
He was a bad Nazarene.
Well, was he a Nazarene?
I believe he was. I guess that's why he didn't cut his hair.
Okay. I never thought about that. I thought so that his strength would be as of today.
Yeah, his sin wasn't sleeping with women. His sin was sleeping with Philistine women. I mean, he slept his way halfway through Philistia, but I mean, that was his sin. His father was a Nazarene.
I'm sorry.
He's a Nazarite, actually.
Nazarite. Okay.
Nazarite. I thought that sounded funny, Nazarene, but
okay.
Yeah.
Nazarene, as far as I know, is just this sect, right? This kind of pre-intent, like they're like Essenes, only more Old Testament-y. There you go. You can. We need many specialists for this to make sense. But anyway, okay. Thank you, Paula. I think that you got yourself the hardest paragraph.
Oh well.
So
I actually understood a lot of the words because I encountered them a lot when I was translating for my PhD.
Oh, good.
By the way, Jewish and Muslim names, like non-Christian names, are frequently not declined.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Well, sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. It's kind of weird.
I know. Hebrew words, I think the Hebrew Bible words tend almost never to be. Well,
yeah.
Except when they are. Okay. So Irene, do you want to do 27.2?
Sure. Novissime autem tres illae philosophiae sectae, quas Josephus in libro Antiquitatum distinguens, alios Phariseos, alios Sadduceos, alios nominat Essenes. However, more recently, as for three of the philosophical sects, which Josephus, in the Book of Antiquities separates, he calls them, some of them the Pharisees, some the Sadducees, and some the Essenes. Apud nos vero monachi, quivi delicet aut communem apostolorum vitam, aut priorem illam et solitariam Johannes imitantur. With us, truly, the monks are, or in our time, as we said before, perhaps. Or no, probably with our religion, the monks are, who obviously imitate either the common life of the apostles, or earlier, they imitate that solitary life of John.
Good. Wow, that was quite a crash. Yes, before we go on, let me just talk about the word vero, right? Which, along with the word verum, are two of the most annoying words in all of Latin. Because theoretically, vero means truly, whereas verum means but. But verum can in fact mean truly, and vero can in fact mean but. Because I guess truly does kind of work that way, right? Truly, I really think that's a bad idea, but truly I really do, right? It's totally ambiguous, I guess, in English too, although it doesn't seem to cause any problems. But in Latin, it really does. And here I think it probably is but, right? In other words, Josephus talks about the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the Essenes, but among us, we've got our monks, right? So I think in practice, I think with verum and vero, you just think of both possibilities and then slot whichever one makes most sense. Does that horrify you, Jen?
No.
Oh, okay, good. I
think they both mean but more often than they mean truly.
I think so too, actually. Yeah. Good. Keep going, Irene. That's great.
Apud gentiles autem ut dictum est, philosophy. Non enim sap. Oh wait, never mind. With the Gentiles, however, as it was said, the philosophers were.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Non enim sapientae vel philosophiae nomen, tamad scientiae perceptionem, quamad vitae religionem referebant. For the name of wisdom or philosophy does not so much refer to the gathering of knowledge as it does to the religiousness of life. Sicut ab ipso etiam cuius nominis ortu didicimus, ipsorum quoque testimonio sanctorum. Just as we learned of the arising of this name also from itself and from the testimony of the church fathers themselves.
Good. Yes, the second part of that sentence I've got no quarrel with. The first part, I took referebant, the subject of referebant, as being the Gentiles. For the Gentiles don't refer the name to wisdom and to philosophy so much as to wait a minute. Well, anyway, I take the subject of referebant to be the Gentiles.
Yeah.
Does that make, do we agree about that? So they didn't refer their name. Oh, the name of wisdom and philosophy so much to the perception of wisdom, of knowledge, as to the religion of their life. So that's why that's why they're using those words, as we know from the very name of philosophy, which means love of wisdom, and also the fact that the church fathers said that. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, good. And in fact, in the next paragraph, we get Augustine supporting Heloise's case. Okay, so she's got two arguments. She's got the fact that she's got the name Philosophia, and she's got the fact that Augustine agrees with her. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, good. Do we want to go on and do 27.3? Is anyone ready for this? I actually don't think I assigned it, did I?
No.
Okay, well then maybe we shouldn't. Maybe because it's the middle of July, we should just end. Right. Okay. I'm sorry we didn't finish Heloise's speech, but we'll finish it next time. All right, anyone have any final thoughts?
It's a bit dated, sorry, but it's an important book that might give some more insight into what's going on with Abelard versus Eloise's status at this time. And it's called The Medieval Household. And it's been out since I think about the 80s. But the theory in it is that in the early part of the Middle Ages, family was much more powerful than individual or overall government law. And so kind of like clan law kind of thing, Germanic. And then as you get into the latter part of the 12th century, especially towards the 13th and 14th centuries, individualism comes up and you have more of rule of law rather than rule of family custom. And it's not who's in your family, it's you can have personal status. And in the earlier part, women had much more influence because women had influence within the family, but they lose power and influence and status in the latter part of the Middle Ages because the rise of individualism doesn't actually include the rise of women's individual rights. So they actually lose rights because under the old family system, they had more rights.
Wouldn't you know it? Just when you thought you were making progress. Never mind. I'll look that up. Well, I might look that up. As I say, I've been busy. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Next week, but I think Jameson and Jen can deal with it. And let's keep on going if we feel like it, and then we can stop keeping on going if we don't feel like it, right? Because we don't have to do this if we don't want to.
That's a good mission statement.
What? For college in general?
For life.
Yeah.
For life, yes.
For everything.
Right, for everything, right. Let's only do things that we want to do.
Yes.
Except Irene, she has to study. Okay, thanks everyone. See you in 2 weeks. Have a great time.
You too.
Thanks for this evening. Take care. I'm going to end the meeting now.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.